The night it happened, I was 2 beers deep, my back aching like hell, and honestly, the last thing I expected was for my best friend to offer me a massage. Let me rewind a little. I'm Ethan, 26, single, kinda stuck in that post-college limbo where your job isn't quite your dream, but it pays the bills. I'd been working insane hours lately, glued to my laptop, editing marketing videos for a startup that thinks work-life balance means staying under 70 hours a week. My body had started to protest, especially my shoulders and lower back, which had basically turned into knots of concrete. That Friday night, my best friend Jamie came over to hang. We'd been friends since freshman year of college, the kind of friendship where nothing was ever weird between us, until that night. Jamie had always been the golden retriever type. Easy smile, messy dark blonde curls, athletic without trying, and the kind of guy who made strangers spill their secrets. He was straight, or so I thought, and very much the cool guy to my more quiet, anxious energy. We never talked about feelings, never crossed lines. So there we were, sitting on my floor eating shitty takeout and half watching some terrible reality show when I groaned and reached for my back again. "Dude," Jamie said, nudging my thigh with his foot. "You've been groaning like an 80-year-old all night. What's up?" "Back's killing me," I muttered, rolling my shoulders. "Editing all week. I feel like someone cranked me into a pretzel and left me to die." "You want a massage?" I blinked. "What?" he shrugged, as casual as if he'd offered me a beer. "I used to do it for my ex. She was a dancer. Always sore. I'm pretty good, actually." I laughed. "Okay, Casanova," he rolled his eyes. "I'm serious, man. Lie down." I hesitated. "You're not gonna, break me?" "No promises," he grinned, already standing up. "But if I do, at least you'll die relaxed." It should have felt like a joke. But the way he looked at me, there was something unreadable in his expression. Not flirtatious, not obvious, just focused, curious. I lay down on the couch, pulling my hoodie over my head, leaving just a soft t-shirt and joggers. Jamie grabbed a throw pillow and gently moved my head to rest on it. He straddled the couch beside me, one knee on the cushion, and placed both hands on my back. The first touch made me flinch. "Damn, you're tense," he said, digging his thumbs into the space between my shoulder blades. "You're not even breathing." "I'm fine," I lied, trying not to focus on how warm his hands were. His fingers moved slowly, surprisingly skilled. He used the heel of his palm to push into the knots in my upper back, working in small, slow circles. I groaned, louder than I meant to. "See?" he said, chuckling. "Told you I wasn't useless." "Shut up," I muttered, eyes closed. "That actually feels amazing." For the next 5 minutes, I let go. No words, just the quiet pressure of his hands, the sound of the show still playing in the background. I was melting under his touch. That was the only way to describe it. Melting, unraveling, then it shifted. I don't know how else to explain it. He wasn't doing anything different, not really, but the touch lingered. His thumbs grazed down my spine slower. His palms splayed wider. He started using both hands, moving lower, massaging along the sides of my ribs. Not inappropriate, not yet, but close enough to make my breath hitch. He noticed. I know he did. "You okay?" he asked, his voice quieter. "Yeah," I said. "Just surprised you're actually good at this." He chuckled again, but it didn't sound cocky. It sounded nervous. Or maybe I was projecting. His hands paused at my lower back, just above the waistband of my pants. "You want me to stop?" I could have said yes. I could have laughed it off, told him that was enough, but I didn't. "No," I said. "It's fine." And that was the moment. The line. We both knew it. Something unsaid passed between us in the air. He started again. Slower now, softer. One hand pressing down, the other sliding in short, smooth strokes. My heart was racing. My mouth had gone dry. And then he did something I didn't expect. He leaned down, just slightly, and whispered near my ear. "Tell me if this is weird," he said. It was, but not in the way I thought. It wasn't weird because my best friend was giving me a massage that was veering into the personal. It was weird because I didn't want him to stop. Not even a little. I should have said something, made a joke, defused the tension, rolled off the couch, and called it a night. But I didn't. I stayed still, my cheek pressed into the pillow, listening to the sound of Jamie's breathing behind me. It had changed. Slower, deeper. I could feel the heat of his body now. He was closer than before. His hands had stilled on my lower back, fingers resting lightly, not massaging anymore. "You okay?" he asked again, voice lower this time. "Yeah," I said quietly. But even I didn't recognize my voice. It sounded too soft, too open. Another pause. Then his hands started moving again. Not in that neutral, therapeutic way from before. This time, there was intention, pressure, and pause. His thumbs slid along my sides, just under the hem of my t-shirt. The fabric shifted with each movement, exposing skin inch by inch. Goosebumps spread across my arms, but not from the cold. I could feel him shifting behind me, readjusting his weight. One of his knees pressed against the edge of my thigh. I stayed frozen, not because I was scared, but because I didn't want to misstep. If I flinched the wrong way, if I said the wrong thing, whatever this was could vanish. "Tell me to stop," Jamie murmured. "I'm not going to," I replied, surprising myself. His hand moved up the side of my ribs, lifting the back of my shirt with it. When he saw I didn't protest, he slowly pulled it up to my shoulders and let it bunch there. The air hit my bare skin, but his hands warmed it instantly. He moved with a careful slowness, like he was trying not to scare me, or maybe himself. His palm smoothed over the small of my back, then higher. He dragged his thumb gently along my spine. It wasn't sexual. Not exactly. It felt like something else. Intimate. Curious. "You've got this little freckle here," he said, quietly amused, thumb brushing over it. "Never noticed that before." I turned my head slightly, just enough to glance at him over my shoulder. His expression was unreadable. Not nervous, but not cocky either. Focused. Maybe a little scared. "Have you done this before?" I asked. "Massage?" he said, giving a small smirk. "Yeah." "No," I said, holding his gaze. "This." Jamie's eyes held mine. Then he sat back, his hands slipping away from my skin. The air rushed in where he'd been touching me, and I instantly missed the warmth. "No," he said, "I haven't." He wasn't looking at me when he said it. He was staring down at his hands like they'd done something wrong. "But I've thought about it," he added, "more than I should have." My breath caught in my throat. "Thought about me?" He didn't answer right away. He rubbed the back of his neck, exhaling hard. "You remember that night a couple months ago? We were drunk, and you passed out on the couch?" "Yeah, I sat there for like an hour," he said. "Just watching you sleep." "Not in a creepy way, I swear. I just—" He stopped. It messed with me. The way I felt. I rolled onto my side, pulling my shirt down halfway. "Why didn't you say anything?" He shrugged. A small, helpless gesture. I didn't know what to say. I've only dated girls. I didn't even think this was something I could feel. But with you, it's just been different, easy, scary, but easy. I sat up slowly, my legs crossed beneath me. We were facing each other now, knees almost touching. "Jamie," I said, "if this is just some curiosity thing." "It's not." His voice was firm, certain. "I don't want to lose what we have," I said. "You won't." "You say that, but—" He leaned in. Not all the way, just enough that I could feel the question in the air between us, "You want me to stop?" he asked. I didn't move. "No," I said, barely above a whisper, and then he kissed me. Soft. Hesitant. His lips barely touched mine, like he was afraid I might pull away. But I didn't. I leaned into it, my hand brushing his jaw as I kissed him back. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple. And it felt exactly right. When we finally pulled apart, his eyes searched mine like he was trying to read what I wasn't saying. "I have no idea what this means," he said. "Me either," I replied. "But I want to find out." And just like that, everything changed. After that kiss, we sat there in stunned silence for a few seconds. The kind that feels like hours. The air between us was still thick with whatever had cracked open, and for a moment, I was sure he was going to backpedal, laugh it off, say something like, "Dude, that was weird, huh?" But he didn't. Instead, Jamie sat back a little, looking at me with this nervous half smile, like he wasn't sure if he was supposed to be proud of himself or terrified. "So," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "that just happened." "Yep. And you're not freaking out?" "I mean," I said, shrugging, "I've thought about it more than once. You being into me. But I never thought it would actually go anywhere." Jamie nodded slowly, like he was still trying to wrap his head around the fact that I hadn't shoved him off the couch or thrown him out of the apartment. "I've been trying not to think about it," he admitted. "You're the one person I didn't want to mess things up with." I gave him a small smile. "You haven't. Yet." He let out a breath of relief, then laughed quietly. That's comforting. It was weirdly easy, sitting there with him after everything. I didn't feel awkward or panicked like I thought I would. I felt kind of calm. Maybe it was the way he'd touched me. Not just the massage, but how careful he was. Or maybe it was because I'd wanted this longer than I was willing to admit to myself. We ended up talking for the next hour. Nothing heavy. Just easing back into our usual rhythm. There were long pauses where we didn't say much. Just sat near each other, legs touching, hands brushing. Every now and then, I'd catch him looking at me, that same curious, almost shy expression on his face. Eventually, the clock hit midnight, and the energy in the room shifted again. He yawned, stretching out on the couch beside me. "You staying here tonight?" I asked, nodding toward the guest room. He'd crashed at my place before plenty of times. "I was gonna," he said. Then added, "Unless you want me to stay in here." He said it casually, but his eyes searched mine for the answer he wasn't saying out loud. I didn't respond right away. I was torn. Not because I didn't want it, but because I didn't know what it would mean. Did we go back to normal in the morning? Was this a one-night unraveling of tension that had been building for years? I scooted back on the couch and patted the space beside me. Jamie didn't say anything, just stood up, walked around to the other side, and settled in. We lay side by side on the small couch, bodies pressed just close enough to feel each other's warmth. His arm was behind my head, mine resting lightly against his chest. It wasn't sexual. It wasn't even overly romantic. It was just closeness, comfortable and slow. After a few minutes, he whispered, "This okay?" I nodded into his shoulder. "Yeah, it is." We didn't talk after that. I could feel his breathing slow as he drifted off. I lay awake longer, staring at the ceiling, heart beating steady but fast. Not because I was nervous. Because I knew this wasn't just a random thing. I'd kissed other guys before. I'd even had relationships, but none of them ever felt like this. Like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And maybe Jamie didn't know what he was doing yet. Maybe this was the start of something messy, or complicated, or temporary. But lying there, his arm around me, chest rising and falling softly beneath my cheek, I didn't care. I just wanted to see where it would go. I woke up to the sound of rain tapping against the windows, and the weight of Jamie's arm still draped over me. For a few seconds, I wasn't sure if I was dreaming. My brain, half awake, tried to make sense of the warmth pressed against my back and the slow, steady rhythm of his breathing behind me. Then I remembered The massage, the kiss, the conversation, all of it. I was lying in my best friend's arms on a half-sunken couch that barely fit the two of us, and I felt oddly okay. No shame, no regret, just that quiet morning stillness that comes with something new. The kind of new that feels fragile, like you don't want to move too fast and break it. Jamie stirred behind me, and I felt his fingers twitch against my chest before he mumbled, "You awake?" "Yeah," I whispered. "You?" He chuckled softly. "Not anymore." We didn't move. Neither of us seemed in a hurry to break the moment. I could feel him adjusting slightly, and then his lips brushed the back of my neck. Not a kiss. Just a press of skin, soft, hesitant. "You okay?" he asked, voice low, sleep rough. I nodded. "You?" He was quiet for a second. "Honestly?" I thought I'd wake up panicking. But I feel weirdly calm. Same. We lay there for a few more minutes before he finally sighed and pulled away slightly, stretching his arms overhead. "Okay, I need coffee, or I'm going to stop functioning," he said, already standing up and heading toward the kitchen. I sat up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, watching him move around like he hadn't just completely shifted the dynamic between us. That was the thing about Jamie. He had this way of making everything feel easy, even when it wasn't. He poured us both mugs and handed me one, leaning against the counter like it was just another Saturday. "So," he said, avoiding eye contact. "What happens now?" I sipped my coffee. "You tell me." He gave a small laugh. "I was hoping you'd have the answer." "I mean, I don't want to make it a big deal," I said carefully. "But also, it kind of is a big deal." Jamie nodded slowly. "I know. I don't want you to think this is some phase or experiment. I wouldn't have done any of that if it didn't mean something." That hit harder than I expected. I met his gaze, and for the first time, he didn't look unsure. He looked like someone who had crossed a line and knew exactly why he did it. "I don't think it's a phase," I said. "But I also don't want to push you into anything you're not ready for." He set his coffee down, walked over to me, and stood between my knees. "I'm ready to figure it out. With you." It wasn't a declaration, it wasn't a promise, it was just a choice. Real and quiet and present. I nodded, letting the moment settle in my chest. "Okay," I said. "Let's figure it out." He leaned in, kissed me again. This time, slower, less uncertain. His hands rested on my thighs, and I let mine settle on his hips, grounding us. It still felt new, but the tension was gone. We weren't tiptoeing anymore. We were just there, in it. And when we pulled apart, he gave me a crooked smile. "I still owe you a real massage, by the way. One that doesn't end in a life crisis." I laughed. "Honestly, that one wasn't too bad." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? You want part 2 tonight?" I tilted my head, teasing. "Depends. Are you offering for medical reasons or—" "Oh, definitely not medical," he said, already grinning. That day unfolded in this strange, slow-motion kind of way, like our regular lives were still happening around us, but something underneath had shifted. Jamie didn't suddenly become some lovesick romantic, and I didn't start daydreaming about wedding bells. We were still just us, still teasing each other, still fighting over whose turn it was to take the trash out, still making dumb jokes during lunch. But everything felt different. There were these small changes. The way he'd let his fingers brush mine when we passed each other in the kitchen, or how he lingered when we stood close, like his body was still asking, "Is this okay?" And mine was answering yes, keep going. In the afternoon, he sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching something for his design portfolio, and I was on the couch, half watching a movie, but mostly watching him. At one point, he looked up and caught me staring. "What?" he said, smirking. "Nothing," I said, trying not to grin. "You're just very focused." "Uh-huh," he said, narrowing his eyes playfully. You're just trying to distract me so you don't have to help cook dinner later. Wouldn't dream of it. That night, we didn't make a big deal about sleeping arrangements. When I shut off the lights in the living room and turned toward my bedroom, Jamie followed without a word. It was easy, casual even. He just pulled off his shirt, slid under the covers next to me, and exhaled like he'd been waiting all day to be in this exact spot. We didn't do anything that night. No kissing, no touching, just lying side by side, knees bumping under the blankets, the room quiet except for the occasional car passing outside. It was maybe the most intimate night I'd ever had with someone. When I woke up, he was on his back, one arm over his eyes, his chest rising and falling slowly. I watched him for a second before rolling onto my side and brushing my fingers lightly against his. He flinched, then blinked, stretched, and turned toward me. "Morning," he murmured, voice thick with sleep. "Morning." He scooted a little closer, forehead wrinkled slightly. "I have a weird question. Hit me." "What do we call this?" I shrugged. "We don't have to call it anything yet. We're just figuring it out, remember?" "Right." He paused. "But I mean, I like waking up next to you. I like yesterday. All of it. Even the part where I panicked and word vomited about freckles." I laughed. The freckle thing was kind of adorable, not gonna lie. Jamie smiled, but then his expression shifted, turning serious. "I'm scared, though." "Of what?" He hesitated. "Of screwing this up, of not being enough for you, of realizing too late that I opened a door I wasn't ready to walk through." The way he said it, so open, so vulnerable, made my chest ache. "I get it," I said quietly. "And I'm not expecting you to have all the answers. Hell, I don't even know what I want long term. But I want you here, with me, like this." Jamie nodded slowly, then leaned in and kissed me. It was a lazy morning kiss. Soft, lingering, familiar already. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "Okay," he said. "Then I'm here." We lay there in silence, fingers tangled, letting the moment stretch. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean or clear. But it was real. And that felt like the best start I could ask for. The following week felt like a strange blend of normal and not. We went about our routines, Jamie heading off to campus, me diving into client work, but every evening ended the same, him climbing into bed beside me like it was the most natural thing in the world. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just lay in the dark, listening to each other breathe. But more often than not, we found ourselves touching, fingers grazing, arms tangled, legs overlapping under the sheets. It wasn't sexual, not exactly. It was closeness, something in between comfort and curiosity, and it never felt forced. But one night, about a week into our new, whatever this was, I noticed Jamie acting off. We were eating dinner on the couch, passing a bowl of pasta between us, when I caught him staring at the muted TV screen, barely responding to anything I said. He hadn't laughed at the joke I made. He hadn't teased me once all evening. "All right," I said, nudging his knee. "What's going on in that tragic little brain of yours?" He blinked and looked at me like he hadn't realized I was even there. "Nothing, just tired." "Jamie," he sighed and set down his fork. "Okay, so I talked to my sister today." "Yeah." She asked if I'm seeing anyone, and I froze. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell her. I almost did. I sat back, giving him room. But then I didn't. I told her I was just busy with school, and she changed the subject. There was a long pause. "I feel like a coward," he said finally. "You're not," I said. "You're figuring it out. There's no deadline." He rubbed his face with both hands. "I know. But I don't want to be this half-invisible version of myself forever. I don't want you to think I'm ashamed of you." I reached for his hand, threading my fingers through his. "I don't think that," I said. "I think you're scared. And honestly, so am I." He looked at me like he didn't quite believe it. "I've been out for a while," I said. "But this, it's new for me too. I've never been with someone who's figuring it out in real time. It's kind of terrifying." Jamie exhaled slowly, his shoulders dropping. "I don't want to hide you," he said. I just need a little time before I bring it into the rest of my world. My family, my friends. I don't know how they'll take it. You don't owe anyone an explanation before you're ready, I said gently. This is your pace. I'm not going anywhere. He looked at me then. Really looked like something had settled inside him. You're kind of amazing, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Yeah? Took you long enough to notice. That got a laugh out of him, the kind that curled around the room and made it feel warm. Later that night, we climbed into bed like usual, but this time, when Jamie pulled me into his arms, it was different. His hands weren't tentative. They were sure. He held me like someone who'd made a choice. Ethan, he whispered in the dark. Yeah? I want this. I don't know where it goes, but I want it. My throat tightened. I swallowed. Me too. He pressed his lips to the back of my neck. A slow, grounding kiss that said everything words couldn't. And for the first time since that night on the couch, I didn't feel like we were walking on eggshells anymore. We were walking forward. Together. Jamie came out to his sister 2 weeks later. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, and I wasn't even in the room when it happened. He was pacing the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and nervous. I didn't hear the words, just the long silences between them. The way his back stayed tense. The way he kept running his hand through his hair. When he finally ended the call, he leaned against the counter, eyes wide and unsure. She cried, he said, eyes blinking like he couldn't believe it. I walked over and waited, giving him the space to finish. She said she was proud of me. She said she always kind of suspected, but didn't want to push me. His voice cracked. She even asked about you. My heart swelled. Yeah? She said she wants to meet you sometime, like properly. I smiled, stepping closer. You okay? He nodded, tears brimming in his eyes, though he was still smiling. Yeah, I think I really am. That moment felt like a milestone, like we were crossing some invisible threshold neither of us had been sure we'd reach. And in the days that followed, it changed everything. Not in huge, dramatic ways, but in the subtle stuff. The way he'd reach for my hand in public. The way he kissed me goodbye before class, even if the door was open. The way he started calling me babe just to annoy me, and I pretended to hate it even though it made my chest go warm every time. There was one night, maybe 3 weeks later, when we were lying on the roof of our building. Jamie had brought up a blanket, 2 beers, and some late-night snacks, and we were watching the sky turn that deep, impossible shade of indigo. I used to think I'd never do this, he said quietly, eyes on the stars. Like, never be in something like this, never let myself be. Why? He paused for a long time. Because I thought if I did, I'd lose everything. My family, my friends, my sense of who I was. I turned toward him, waiting. But now, he said, glancing at me, I realized I didn't lose anything. I found it. That got me. Just wrecked me, in the best way. You sure you're not just with me for the free back rubs? I teased, trying to lighten the mood before I got emotional. He grinned. That's a bonus. But no, I'm here because of you. Because being next to you feels more like home than any version of myself I was trying to be before. I leaned in, kissed him, slow, soft. It didn't feel like a beginning anymore. It felt like we were already in it. That night he fell asleep with his head on my chest, one arm flung lazily over my stomach. I stayed awake a little longer, fingers brushing through his hair, thinking about that first night. The aching back, the casual offer, the way one touch had shifted everything between us. It was never about the massage. It was about all the things we hadn't said, and how finally, slowly, we were learning how to say them. A couple months later, we hosted a small get-together at our place. Nothing fancy, just some friends, a few drinks, way too many chips, and Jamie's attempt at fancy finger foods that were basically just mini grilled cheeses cut diagonally. Some of his friends came, a few of mine. Everyone mingled easily, the way you hope it'll go when 2 worlds meet. And I watched Jamie, really watched him. the way he leaned into conversations, the way he didn't flinch when someone introduced me as his boyfriend, the way his hand found mine under the table like it was second nature now. Later that night, after everyone had cleared out and we were cleaning up the chaos, he pulled me into the kitchen and kissed me. For no reason. No build-up. No ceremony. Just because. When he pulled back, he looked at me in that way. He sometimes did, like he was trying to memorize me. "You remember the night this all started?" he asked, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. "I'd have to be concussed to forget it," he smirked. "You were lying face down on the couch complaining about your back like someone's dad. And you offered a massage and accidentally caused a gay awakening?" Jamie laughed. Then his expression softened. "Not an accident," he said quietly. That surprised me. He looked down at his hands, then back at me. I don't think I was conscious of it at the time, but that night I wanted an excuse to touch you, to be close to you without having to explain why. I think I already knew something was happening. I just didn't have words for it yet. I stepped closer, arms looping around his waist. "I'm glad you didn't wait to figure it out." "Yeah?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Because I think if you hadn't offered that massage, I never would have had the guts to tell you how long I'd wanted it to be more." He smiled, leaning his forehead against mine. "You think it's always gonna feel this scary?" he asked. "Probably. But also worth it? Definitely." We stayed like that for a while, wrapped up in each other, the house quiet and warm and full of all the little remnants of the night. Laughter, dishes in the sink, half-drunk wine glasses, that hum of life in motion. The massage had been a moment, a simple, random moment that cracked something open. But everything after, the choosing, the showing up, the figuring it out together, that's what made it real. It hadn't been a fantasy. It had been slow, messy, human, but it was ours. And it started with one offer, one night, one hand on my back. Now, every time he touches me, in passing, in comfort, in love, I think about how far we've come since that night. And I'm glad I never told him to stop.